Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Zach.
This is Red Faction Guerrilla. Did you play this game?
I played this game. This came out when Blockbusters were still a thing. So I think I rented this game for a weekend, but I don't really remember anything about it.
So it came out in 2009, about a week apart from Prototype.
Prototype, that's a game I played all the way through.
Yeah, so I think your experience with this game is the experience a lot of people had, where because those two games that were so similar, they were like open world games, came out at pretty much the same time. This one got overshadowed by that. Mm-hmm. But they both had their own unique hook. Like that one was obviously running around like a superhero with all these crazy powers, and this one's destructible environments and some pretty decent like third person shooter mechanics.
Yeah, the thing I remember, I was much more into the original Red Faction game for, I think, PS2 or maybe PlayStation. I think it was PlayStation 2. And it had the Geomod system, which was all environments, almost everything in the environment was completely destructible. And I guess that's what the system, or what the series has been known for.
Yeah, so the Geomod 1.0 with the first Red Faction game allowed you to like destroy the actual terrain, whereas this one 2.0 only was just the environments, like the buildings and stuff like that. It wasn't the actual terrain. Some people were disappointed by that, but like the fact that you can just run around destroying buildings left and right, and they're much more complete in their destruction as opposed to like Battlefield Bad Company, which came out I think a year before this game. And that one was like you could punch a hole in a wall, but it was hard to actually take down an entire building. So destructible environments were kind of all the rage at this point. And this game did them better than Battlefield. But actually, I guess it's just a different style. That game was more like allowing you to sort of alter them, but keep them in place so that you could still use them for cover, whereas this game almost too destructible at times, where it was so easy to destroy everything that you ended up with no cover whatsoever, or it would just collapse on top of you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a terrorist in this game, right?
I guess technically, yeah. So you play this guy, Alec Mason, and you just arrive on Mars, and almost immediately the EDF, the Earth Defense Force comes along and kills your brother, and so you join up with the Red Faction, who do not like the EDF, and basically the entire objective is there's like 6 zones, and you have to kind of complete objectives and destroy key EDF like structures, and in doing that you drop their control in that sector and you increase your morale. So you also couldn't let people die, like NPCs, you couldn't let them die, and you couldn't die yourself. All of that was easier said than done because it was very easy to accidentally kill NPCs. But
yeah, especially if you're just blowing up buildings.
Well, yeah, because you're basically just throwing mines around like crazy and blowing them up all the time. But that never got old to me, so the gameplay actually held up pretty well. When I went back to play this, I had a lot of fun with it.
I remember. So a couple things I remember about the Red Faction that I played. Is there a rail gun in this one?
There's that arc welder gun, which I don't remember if there's a railgun actually. I think maybe there is, but you don't get it until you don't get it until pretty late.
The best thing about what my experience with Red Faction was playing Red Faction on PlayStation and just like jacking into the multiplayer alone and just messing with the Geomod, like spawning in a bunch of crazy rockets and just seeing how far I could push the engine. And I don't know that I ever actually beat the game, but I spent probably 100 hours just on like the same 5 maps, destroying the maps in different ways. Is there multiplayer in this?
There is, but so describe that multiplayer. Is it just like an open space you could go into and it was kind of like free roam in GTA?
No, it's just deathmatch.
Oh, okay. Well, so yeah, there's a multiplayer for this game. I actually tried to see if anyone was still playing it because, believe it or not, I think there was an update for this game fairly recently.
Oh, crazy.
Which, yeah, took everybody by surprise because, like, is anybody actually playing this game? But yeah, I couldn't get enough people to actually play a match. But I remember there were jetpacks, and you could the whole thing with the multiplayer in this game was that you could get different jetpacks, and it was all about playing around with those. And they gave you different abilities. Like I think one was like a pretty typical jump jet, and then there was another that was kind of like a ram, and one that was like a health that gave you more health or whatever. I actually played the multiplayer beta for this game before it came out and had a lot of fun with it. And I was like, this is going to be my new multiplayer game. I'm going to play a ton of this. And then because it came out the same time as Prototype, I spent the entire summer playing this and Prototype. And so I just never got around to the multiplayer of it for whatever reason. And then, yeah, just moved on to whatever else came out after this. I do think I preferred this game to Prototype, just because I think the side quests in Prototype were kind of boring. I
agree with that.
They were pretty lame. Like,
I don't even remember any of them, so they must not have been that memorable.
Yeah, they were like mini games where you had to like race something or get from point A to point B really quickly, or just like kill a whole bunch of stuff really quickly. And this game has some pretty similar ones, but even if they were essentially that exact same thing, the fact that you can destroy the environments and all of that made it so that it didn't get old to me the way Prototype did.
Now, to my eye, this is reminding me of a game called Mercenaries. Did you ever play that game?
Oh, yeah, I remember that game. I didn't play it, but I remember it.
Mercenaries was all about, very similarly, I think, being in a place where you needed to commit destruction in order to lower morale of the bad people. And it's sort of free roaming, and there's a lot of explosions. I guess Just Cause is another game like that. But I feel like there are a lot of games that are sort of in the same vein where you're dropped into an environment, you're part of a guerrilla faction, as it were, and you need to commit, like, insane explosive crimes in order to progress.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty popular like game for the time. There was just a ton of them. Prototype to an extent falls in that category as well, just because it's like open world and it had similar sort of mini game side quest type of things, but it didn't have destructible environments or anything like that.
Prototype, I feel like, is more like oh man, what's the name of that one PlayStation exclusive
Infamous?
Series? Yes, Infamous, that's right.
Yeah, I feel like Infamous came out right after that. I was like, man, these games are getting really, really similar.
Super similar, yeah. I preferred Prototype, though, because you could, like, suck yourself... It was all biological, so you could, like, suck yourself into a guy and, like, masquerade as that person, but also you could turn your arms into a giant whip and stuff. Like, it was an insane game concept.
I definitely remember being able to run up walls and just like fly around. The movement was super fluid in that game.
Well, so something I think that Prototype had over this, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can correct me on this, but I felt a really good sense of progression when I played Prototype, because I was constantly getting new movement abilities, new, stronger, like, game-changing abilities. Like, for instance, I think you could just, like... eventually you could just like start bleeding out of your arms to glide and increase your, like, it was insane.
Yeah, I remember that.
But how's the progression system in
That's
this?
fair. I think this game, it's more about upgrading your equipment as you go. So like pretty much everything you destroy gives you scrap, and you use that scrap to go back to your home base, and you upgrade the amount of mines you can carry, or the amount that you can throw out before detonating them and stuff like that. So there was some progression, but it wasn't like, those are the ones you're talking about are more like RPG style mechanics, whereas these are more about the equipment themselves, because I don't think you actually gain any actual abilities, but They did shake up the formula now and then. There's like one mission I remember distinctly because it was available in the beta and it was one of the most fun ones in the campaign where you get this like mech that you can walk around in and you just destroy everything because you can basically use that mech to like walk through a building.
Nice.
Yeah, so they kind of changed up the formula a little bit, but they stayed on theme with destroying everything around you, which was always fun. So,
wait a minute, I'm remembering something. Wait, is there a sequel to this?
Yeah. So there was Red Faction Armageddon that took place in sort of a different time period, and I think you're like a relative, like a distant relative of the protagonist in this game.
Is it this one or the next one where you get a gun or like a gadget that can undo the explosions that you've
It was Armageddon.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't play that one all the way through, but I did play the beta for it. I thought it was kind of cool, but I missed the more open world like and destruction that this game had, and that game didn't do very well, and THQ went bankrupt shortly after that game. So
Oh no.
yeah, so Volition, the company that made this game, got sold off, and I think Red Faction is kind of dead at the moment, which is a shame because if they made another one of these games, like this style, I would totally play it.
Volition, that name sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, so they're the creators of Saints Row and Homefront and more recently Agents of Mayhem.
Yeah, I played the Saints Row where it was all in a computer and you were on a spaceship. Which one was that? It doesn't matter. But yeah, that one was also a pretty good game, I have to say. Similar to this, because you're just sort of, I get at least like aesthetically, it's not on Mars, but it's third person and you're running around and jumping. And I guess it was more like Prototype because you could eventually just like bust up into the sky and fly around.
Yeah, that game struck me as a extremely over the top and cartoony GTA where you
crazy.
Pretty much had superhero powers.
Well, so I never played Saints Row 3, but the premise of Saints Row 4 was I believe they used a lot of the assets from Saints Row 3 and that it was the same town, but the town was recreated in basically a matrix by aliens. So you dropped in, much like Neo, into the town, but it was all like crazy glitchified and like a bunch of crazy virtual reality stuff was happening. It's a very interesting concept for a game, and I enjoyed it.
That leads to pretty much infinite creativity. Like you can do an infinite number of things with that.
Yeah, like there was an insane. I think one of the things had us fighting that whatever their Red Bull analog was. It was it was like that scene in Ghostbusters where it was giant. Actually, I might be remembering this wrong. But anyway, Red Faction Guerrilla is what we're talking about right now.
That is true, yeah. So this is one of the main, I guess it's one of the main story missions, and they're all fairly similar. You run around, you can beat people up with a hammer, which is what I was doing, and if you get low on ammo, you look for one of these red boxes, and I totally messed this up. So what you're supposed to do is run over to where that bridge is and throw some mines down, and I kind of misplaced one of them, and I forgot that I could only throw out 3 at a time. And so I spend so much time trying to move this explosive barrel over there that I completely missed my window to actually detonate them before the EDF drive past it. So just ignore this part.
That's the only thing I remember about this game. Speaking of that hammer, is the first time they drop you in and give you control after like the opening cutscenes, you're standing right next to your brother. And the first thing I did is I got my hammer and I slammed my brother into the ground with the hammer. And the game automatically stopped and was like, hey, don't kill your brother. Press A to restart. I was like, oh man, this is great.
I never tried that. I should try that.
Then, of course, he died.
Yeah, he dies anyway, but that's a good life lesson. Don't sledgehammer your brother.
True to life. This game is teaching life lessons left and right.
I mean, it's always important to remember. I mean, I never sledgehammered my brother in real life. So,
can you fly in this game?
No. You cannot.
And you're really going for that barrel.
I know. So they do have the type of explosive explosive barrels that you can actually pick up and throw around, and I find one later, but I for whatever reason I couldn't find them, and yeah, there's me completely missing my opportunity, so I have to do this the hard way. But the shooter mechanics are all right. Like, you can take cover, but the fact that all cover is so destructible makes it so there's pretty much no point in doing that.
Just like real life.
Yeah.
Best and worst things, Zach.
I mean, obviously the destructible environments, it really never got old to me, just throwing mines around and detonating them. And you get to a point where you can literally do all of your combat with just throwing mines around. Or just running around and hitting people with your hammer is also pretty fun.
Yeah, that does look super fun.
But I think it got some harsh words from some critics like later on in the game, because the difficulty spike once you get later on in the game is pretty rough. I don't remember it being that terribly difficult, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm not remembering it as well as I thought.
You did it.
I did do it, but I think this video is wrapping up.
Well, thank you for showing me this.
Would you play this game?
No.